always entertained in my own home as well as been entertained. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of single people don't reach out and entertain married people, or they just kind of hang out with just single people.
Yeah.
And I've just never been that. And I love single people too. Yeah. I have a lot of single people at my home too. I've always been, I'm an Italian girl. I like to entertain at my home. I like to cook. So anyway, I've just not experienced that now. Say that it's your intentionality that probably solved it. And I don't hang out with singles. I don't attend singles events. I never have.
That's good.
I've always been in groups in church where it's been all ages and stages.
Diversity, yeah.
Because I've just felt that is confining. Even in my early professional life, there were women that would say, well, why don't you as a woman start something with just women? And I've never done that. I don't do that. That to me is counterproductive.
Yeah.
So I just feel like you are with everybody and confined. I like to be with children. I like all different kind of people. And I think part of that is being a second generation American. I was taught never to discriminate, not to separate myself from other people.
And it sounds like you like a whole lot of different characters, right?
I do.
You want to see the Tin Mans and the lions and the scarecrows kind of people.
I think so. And some people might be listening and say, she's not being honest. And I'm as honest with myself as I know how to be.
Right.
There may be things that I'm unaware of, but ignorance is bliss.
Well, let's talk about that. Not ignorance is bliss, but let's talk about the profession that you've really embraced in leadership coaching.
Okay.
Tell me a little bit about how that developed, how that's the thing that gets you up in the morning and gets you excited. Like, what about it is how you were born and how you were made?
Well, you talk to a lot of coaches, and when they go to coaching training, they always say, this is what I was designed to be. I don't think that it happened, the understanding of it happened that way for me. I happen to have... before I started my own coaching practice, I worked at Ronald Blue and Company, and I worked for a gentleman named Roy Ludwig who died an unfortunately untimely death at 59. But during the years that I reported to him, he coached me when coaching wasn't cool. And he really helped me integrate my faith with my profession, and he just coached me through things that I didn't realize I was even struggling with. And when he died, I remember sitting before the Lord in my quiet time chair, as I do, and I remember saying to the Lord, I have been given a gift over these 3 years, working with Roy and working at Ronald Blue and Company, and what do I do with that? And I remember just feeling very impressed to give it away, because I had something that very few people ever experienced.
I see. Yeah, so it was more of someone put something in you that you felt was a gift that you needed to give to someone else.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's how it was kind of born in you, is that concept of coaching.
Yes.
So tell me about, if you were to pick anybody to coach in your
besides
top 10.
You?
No, besides me. We're talking about your movies here.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you were to coach anyone on your top 10, who would you want to coach?
Oh, that's such a great question. I guess Maria, because Maria would be so fun. She would be...
so you're coaching yourself right now.
No, well...
No, keep going.
Because, when I went to coaching training, they said only 20% of people are coachable. And I remember saying to myself, am I going into the wrong profession? But, it's the people who want to change.
Yeah,
and,
it's tough.
It's hard to change. I used to think I was an easy-to-change person. And as I've grown in self-awareness and emotional intelligence, or as I am growing in those things, I've realized I'm not so easy to change either. But anyway, I think Maria demonstrates like what somebody goes through when, she didn't want to leave the convent when the mother, the mother's superior said, you need to go. And I think that would have been a fun time to coach her. I think a fun time to coach her would have been when she went, back
to the nunnery, yeah.
And, most people come to a coach when they're stuck.
Yeah.
And she was stuck a couple of times,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that would have been fun to me,
Yeah.
And because she's not the kind of person that would resist change, even when the mother superior coached her, which she really did.
Yeah.
She didn't resist it. She said, I don't want to, but she did it.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, what most of us need to do. I remember Andy Stanley when he had, I don't even remember what series it was, but he said what he sees is that most people who really make big changes in their lives do that after they decide.
Yeah.
They decide.
Yeah.
And, what I get the privilege of doing with the people that I coach is helping them to reach that point where they decide.
Yeah. How would you coach Steve Martin in Father of the Bride?
I remember him taking those hot dog rolls out in the supermarket. Now, Diane Keaton, there was Diane Keaton again.
Yeah,
Diane Keaton did the best coaching of him when he was in prison that day, saying, now, George, I want you to say that you will not make your daughter's life unhappy. However she did it.
Yeah.
And she didn't say, you idiot, or anything like that. She went in there and just helped him understand how he was taking the joy away from his daughter's, wedding and her happiness. And to me, she just did a great job of that. And, many couples, and all of us, most of us grow up in homes where our parents tell us what to do, and we never get to that place where we walk people through the understanding of what they're doing in the situation instead of judging them or shaming them or whatever, And I think that's what Diane Keaton did with Steve Martin in that film, to help him to just change the way he was thinking about his daughter's wedding.
Yeah, that's really good, because you see that reflected in Dorothy, right? That, she ends up with the same conclusion that she had at the beginning, which is, or she should have had at the beginning, right? Which is that home is, where she was, and that was the people around her who she should value and such. And yet she needed to go outside of her world, experience all these things to appreciate that. Is that the kind of coaching that you long for with people, that you really want them to kind of go down the yellow brick road, experience it?
Well, for me, growing up, like I said, on Long Island in New York, I was the first person to leave a 50-mile radius. It's where everybody lived there, So for me, my yellow brick road was getting out and going to grad school and just God allowing me to be positioned to have just this fabulous, fabulous profession. Even in the 20 years that I was in corporate life, I've just always been given far more opportunity than I've ever deserved or ever been prepared for. I think back on some of those days, some of the jobs I had when I was just a young professional, and I was like, what were they thinking putting me in that job? I had no capability of doing it. But, I've just been given opportunity after opportunity. And I think that what Dorothy experienced in going the yellow brick road is, some of those opportunities are right in front of us if, we have eyes to see and ears to hear.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me how, just as a Southerner, I need to know, how would you coach Scarlett O'Hara?
Well, I think that Scarlett kind of is what you might call maybe a quintessential millennial.
Really? Wow.
In our, she's very self-focused.
Yeah.
Very much thinking that, life should go her way, and when life doesn't go her way, she's got to pick up the pieces.
Yeah.
In terms of emotional intelligence, one of the areas of emotional intelligence is motivation, and motivation we all kind of think about motivation in terms of doing the right thing. Well, I think in most people's lives there is some form of disappointment, whether it's a parent being divorced or whether it's losing a job or having some kind of an illness or a boss not treating you the way you thought you should or whatever. Mm-hmm. And to me, motivation is kind of getting back up on your horse and dealing with that and redefining yourself, or not even just redefining yourself, but just recognizing that everybody's life has challenges. Everybody's life has these things. None of us is immune, no matter how much money we have, no matter how much education we have, no matter how much faith we have, all those kinds of things. So what I think Scarlett had to do was pick it up, and say, I'm not going to let all of this kill my life. I want to get what's left of the options that are available to me.
Yeah. For me, and I know Gone with the Wind and Scarlett is such a big icon for women, because she is strong and she is that, has her fist to the air and is going to, as God is my witness, nothing's going to get me. And like you said, the motivation kind of drives her, which you're saying is a really good thing. Like you would coach her to be driven by that motivation. But how do you deal with the other side of it, which is that she is so unaware, she's just not emotionally intelligent.
Right.
How would you lead her to that place so that she doesn't lose Red at the end, and that she gets her eyes off of Ashley, let's say?
Well, she may not. Sometimes people don't become coachable until they lose what they want.
Oh, okay. So you really see the ending as the place in which you would step in, almost.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Because I don't think she would have been coachable before then. She would have been so self-determined by what she wanted that I'm not sure she would have wanted to hear anything from anybody.
What do you do with people like that in your practice? Like, what do you do when you run into a Scarlett O'Hara that is, you can tell they haven't lost Rhett, they haven't come to that place. Like, what do? You just go, well, see me in a couple of years, or what?
Truthfully, I don't know that most people who are like Scarlett O'Hara at that point in her life go for coaching.
Yeah. They're not coming to you anyway.
They don't need it, in their minds. They think that they can accomplish things on their own. I love this term that Chuck Swindoll used one time. He said, sometimes young leaders need a crushing before they really get to that level of where God designed them to be, with humility. Or if you use Jim Collins' term with a level 5 leader, a combination of humility and relentless commitment to the goal kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think most of us don't get to that place until we come to the end of ourselves.
Yeah. Who would you say is the best, like, if you're coaching leaders and you wanted to sit down with your top 10 and say, here's a great scene that shows what a leader is, what scene would you point people to?
Well, if we look at Jack Nicholson in as Something's Gotta Give, at the end he went back and made amends.
That's good.
And he admitted to Diane Keaton that he'd never been in love before, and he was in his 60s when he was in Paris. And here he was, this very wealthy, accomplished person who had, valets taking care of him. And he realizes that all this stuff that he thought was so great was really the trappings of life rather than real life. And I think at that point he was very coachable. And
Something's got to give.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
And then
that
he
kind of
was
describes
able to,
it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Huh. And that's describing what you're saying as far as where people are when they meet you, is that something has got to give, and they come to you, and that's the most coachable, teachable time. That's
sometimes,
good.
and sometimes people just want to be better leaders, and they want somebody to walk them through some of their decisions and just help them be better leaders, on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Not, what you're describing more is a transition coach, which I do a lot of.
Yeah.
But a lot of people I'm just helping to be better leaders and, combined, say, the principles of leadership with biblical principles of emotional intelligence and putting those together to avoid some of the